Hi, my name is Letty and I am responsible for developing our collection here at the library. Now, we do have a little system so few of us can read different books before its release and kind of decide how to develop our collection in different genres. But in this video, I want to share with you the things I enjoyed the most, which is those upcoming titles that are either a mystery thriller or something very popular online that I want to read for myself and then kind of decide if it's something that fits our library and our patrons. Now, I did a little spread and I know that the covers look very tiny because I'm gonna have to make room for the rest of the titles that I'm gonna add to this spread. But this is my 2026, my 26 and 26 TBR, and this is ARC request, whether it's through NetGalley or through other avenues that we have here at the library. These are the books that I really want to read before its release and kind of decide, especially audiobooks is one of those things that I do have to listen for myself and kind of make a decision if it's something good enough. As of lately, there are a few AI and maybe low production audiobooks that are still as expensive, so it's one of those things that I have to go through before making that purchase, or at least I try to. Now let me start with the first one, which is going to be released on January 13th here in the US. It's called It Should Have Been You by Andrea Mara. Now, this is a story of a woman that decides to gossip over a text message, which I don't understand that part. But she decides to spill the tea on things that are happening with somebody in her neighborhood, and she's supposed to be sending this to her sister. However, it's sent to their community WhatsApp group. So as you can imagine, now everyone in the neighborhood knows all the tea that she was intending to spill to her sister. Now, immediately she starts receiving death threats. And I'm like, okay, how bad could it be? Like, who's gonna threaten you? Like, what are you saying? So it's kind of intriguing to me. Hopefully it's something juicy and entertaining, but the kicker is that somebody with the same address, because she lives on 26 Oak Park, ends up murdered. But this is in a different part of town. So is this something that somebody did because of what she did and just went to the wrong side of the neighborhood? Or is this just something random that happened? The next book on the list is Nobody Heard a Thing Except You by Angela Henry. And this is an author I haven't heard from before, or read from before, I should say. This is multiple POVs, and we're gonna follow Ava, who witnessed the abduction of her best friend when they were little. Now, a documentary filmmaker approaches her years later, and she becomes convinced that a woman that is in a shelter where she volunteers is her long-lost friend. So I thought that that was interesting and kind of out there, different from all the mysteries and thrillers that I've been reading lately. And I think it's interesting enough. Maybe if you read a lot of mysteries, this is something that you've seen before, but I thought it was intriguing. Now, the next book included on my list is going to be released on February 17th. It is the latest Taylor Adams book, Her Last Breath. Now, this is a story of Tess and Alma, who were high school friends and then drifted apart. Tess became a legal assistant, while Alma was a travel influencer and kind of very adventurous, very quote-unquote fun compared to the kind of job that the friend had, Tess had. Now, eventually Alma convinces Tess to go into this cave, that she's been there before, she's done it, it's completely safe, so let's go. Once they get there and they think they're completely alone, it kind of takes you through the steps on, before they're actually in the cave, the way that they had to go down and the equipment and the things that weren't working out. So it's very atmospheric, I have to say. But then they get to a point where there's a guy that shows up, like, in it's not a scenario that is very, like, unless he was hiding somewhere, the steps that you have to take to get to the cave would have alerted them that somebody was down there. However, he was, I don't know if hiding or what was the point of why they didn't know, but he's creepy and he's scaring them. While Tess is trying to stay away from the guy, be kind of nice, but, keep her distance, Alma decides to curse him out. And now all I'm going to say is Tess end up getting stuck in this crawl space. And 24 hours later, she's explaining what happened to an officer or a detective, and he starts sharing a lot of stuff about her friend, Alma, that Tess didn't even know. So this attack might have been something planned. Or maybe it wasn't. Now, the next one I kind of skipped over because I haven't been approved just yet. But this is expected to be released on February 3rd. It is by Mary Kubica. It's called It's Not Her. Now, this is a story of two families on vacation. They are going to this cabin by the lake. And Courtney hears like this horrible scream coming from her brother and sister-in-law's cabin, so she decides to go there. She finds that they're both dead and that her niece is missing. Now, as the investigation is happening, there's a lot of secrets that are coming out to surface, and we have to decide if the niece is the one that committed the murders or if somebody else did because of the secrets that they were keeping. Of course, in Mary Kubica's style, this, or at least it seems like it's one of those stories where there's going to be like a main mystery, but then there's also little secrets spreaded here and there. So I think it's going to be a fun domestic thriller. Now, the next one is one that if you've been on my channel for a while, you're probably thinking, why? Why are you requesting an ARC? And this just got approved today by Marcus Kleber. He was the one that wrote the book last year that was called We Used to Live Here. And I have to say that I was intrigued by that book. And I wanted to come back to it because I really wanted to know what was going to happen at the end. I thought it was written in a very smart way. What I didn't like about the book was the ending, because it was an ambiguous ending, and because of what I like on my reading, sometimes those ambiguous endings, it's like, they're so crazy out there, where I found some theories that was talking about, or we're talking about an alternative reality. Other people thought it was aliens. So I can't come up with something that would make sense in my head to give it an ending. So, but I did really like how he developed the story and kept me reading until the end. At the end, I was like, why? And I feel like once We Used to Live Here becomes a movie or a series, whatever they're going to make it, I think it's going to be amazing. Because like I said, I thought that the book was written amazingly, and I thought it kept my interest, and that's a big for me. I just hope that I'm gonna be smart enough to know what it means in the end. Anyway, what I am going to be reading by Marcus Kleber, and it has 4.19 on Goodreads at this point. So apparently people that have been reading it up until this point have been enjoying it. But this is the story of an exciting opportunity to go and work for 3 days for a competitive pay. And it's an ad where it says serious applicants only. So Macy Mullins sees this ad and she's like, okay, this sounds like a place where I'm gonna get murdered. There's going to be like a fisherman with a hook and it's gonna grab me from behind. And, she has that feeling that, this is the Oregon coast wilderness, which is my favorite setting. And I think that's why I enjoy his books, the atmosphere of his books so much. So this is in the middle of nowhere. It is dark. It is, I think it says that it's in the winter. And it's 3 days. I mean, how hard can it be? She needs to buy groceries. She needs to pay her rent. So she's like, okay, I may get murdered, but I'm going to take this job. And what she finds once she's there is some evil entity that is going to transform completely this experience for her. Really, really do hope I enjoy this one, because he keeps coming up with this very interesting synopsis that I'm like, with the way you write, the atmosphere you create, this is the recipe for a 5-star, and I hope it is. And then there is The Anniversary, and this is by Alex Finley. This has a 4.34 stars on Goodreads with 109 reviews and 178 ratings as of today. Now, I did get approved for this one, and this will be, I don't know if I mentioned, but will be released on May 12th. Alex Finley is an author that I don't care what he writes, I'm going to get it. I'm going to buy the book. I'm going to get the ARC. I'm going to listen to the audiobook. I'm going to use up my credits on your audiobook if I don't get it in an ARC. Like, I love his writing because I feel like he comes up with the most interesting endings. So you question what is happening the entire book, and then at the end everything is revealed, and everything ties to something. You know, there's a connection to everything, every character, and I remember watching one of his interviews recently, and he said that he starts a book with an idea and he doesn't know where it's going. So that should tell you how smart this guy is, to kind of remember every single thing and kind of work his way to an ending that will be as amazing as most of his endings are. I really did love last year's release. I have a review if you want to check it out. We'll be in the top of the screen. But it was a little young for me because it was about college students and messy rich parents, which usually I don't like to read messy rich people drama. I know it's popular here on YouTube, but I'm not interested. So I thought maybe that's gonna take points. No, it was really good. It was amazing. Let me tell you about this one. So this story takes us back to 1992, and this is the story of Quinn, who is a boy who was born in the wrong side of the tracks. He is trying to stop this fight that is happening, and unfortunately he hurt somebody and he ends up going to juvie. Now, that very same day, our other character, Jules, she survives the attack of a serial predator who only strikes on May 1st in Midwestern small towns. So she survives the attack. A year later, Quinn is getting out of juvie, and she is kind of dealing with all the trauma of what happened that day a year ago. Quinn gets out of juvie. He goes back home to investigate what happened to his mom. And eventually, their paths are going to cross, and everything's going to make sense. And that's all I need to know. Like, I need to know that every single detail that I'm reading is very important because it's taking us somewhere. You know, I feel like even if he says that day was sunny, but there was a cool breeze coming from the room, I'm like, oh, that cool breeze, it's going to come back to me. And that's how I feel about his books. Now, last year I read Don't Let Him In by Lisa Jewell. That was her latest release. And I didn't like it. I really didn't. It didn't click with what I like to read. It was kind of a con artist and a lot of family secrets, but tied down to money. I don't know. I just didn't enjoy it. But this year, her new release is called It Could Have Been Her, and it's expected to be released on June 23rd. Now, this is an intriguing premise to me. This is the story of Jane, and she goes out to walk her dogs, And she knows that there's this girl who's taking care of the neighbor's dog, a little white dog. And so she's on her walk with her own dogs, and she finds a little white dog. And she's like, wondering where this girl is. So she looks around, she can't find her. So she decides to take the dog to the owners who live in a different house. I don't know if I didn't understand by the premise if this is like their lake house or their out of town house, and then they have a main house in London. I don't know, but she goes back to this house. There's this man that opens the door and he says, well, the dog must have been stolen. And she's like, no, she didn't say that. But she's thinking that's not true or not even likely. So she kind of peeks in and she sees a woman there, and there is a story that she lived through 25 years prior in that house. So there is something in that house that could potentially reveal where this girl is, and a lot more about the people that now are missing. So I'm interested. I hope. Now the next one is by Christina Lauren, who writes mostly contemporary romance, and I have read her premises and I always am excited. However, every time I'm going to try a new author, I don't know, it's probably because working here at the library, I want to read their latest release and then go back to their backlist if needed. But this premise sounded so interesting. By the way, it's going to be released on July 14th, and this is the story of Emery Finch, who 3 years ago met this guy in Vegas who is the love of her life. Unfortunately, she's working so much on this research. She's, according to what I get from the synopsis, she's some kind of scientist, and she has this late meetings. She's like devoting a lot of time to her research and to her project, and she's hoping that Luca is understanding that this is only for a short period of time, maybe a long period of time, but eventually will be done. Everything will be great. This is going to help people so much that he's going to understand why she devoted so much time to it. However, an accident happens and takes Luca away from her, which I wonder what that is. Did he die? Or is he in a coma? Or what is happening? But that's what it's saying. So, desperate not to lose him, she breaks every single rule, and she tries whatever she is working on him. However, he's not going to remember her when he comes back. So she's going to spend her time trying to win him back, and this time not waste time and focus on the couple. Now, it sounds very interesting. I'm kind of curious to see what kind of research this is, what kind of, whatever this is. I'm excited to, kind of connect the dots over here. And we'll see what happens. I mean, why wouldn't he remember her? What is this thing? But I guess we're going to have to read the book to figure that out. Now, the next one will be released on July 16th and is by Sherry Lapina. I love some of her books. I really do love them. And then there are other books where, like this one doesn't sound interesting to me, but because I love her writing so much and how intricate her plots get and how connected everything is, and I hope that it becomes this puzzle in my head that I'm going to truly enjoy. So this is a story of a couple, and it's Jill and Ted. And they're in love with their New York brownstone. And they're in love with it as much as people are in love with their children. That's how it's described here. That everything looks like the stuff of glossy magazines and real estate dreams. It's their sanctuary. I don't know how you make that connection. Like, it's either it's a magazine perfect kind of house, or it's a cozy, this is my sanctuary, my place. It kind of lost me a little bit over there. But Ted does some kind of a bad investment. So they get together, Jill and Ted, and they decide that they're going to kill a family member so they can get the inheritance, get the money, and keep the house. Again, you kind of lost me at that because I'm like, Who is going to do that? Like, in my head, it happens. We've seen it happen before, but it's like, I don't know. It's not one of the things that I'm interested in. However, I'm really wanting to see if this is something that her writing is going to make interesting. And that's what I can hope for. Now, this one is a shot in the dark. It's called Laura Clark is Away from Her Desk by Helen Russell. And this is supposed to be released on July, or is expected to be released on July 30th. Now, it only has 2 ratings, and it's a 5-star. It's a perfect 5 stars. So I'm assuming it hasn't been read enough. This is a hilarious premise. And I think it's because it's such a real thing or scenario. But I'm assuming it's going to be approached in a funny way. This is a story of Laura, who is an HR person. And, you know, to her colleagues, she's just a boring 40-something-year-old who ends up planning snacks for meetings and scheduling things, and just magical things appear in their calendars because of all of the work she does. But nobody really appreciates what she's doing. When she goes home, she has a teenager who's obsessed with selfies and herself, as most teenagers can be, and her husband really ignores her. He just wants to make sure dinner is on the table, the house is somewhat put together, and it's almost like a business even at home. So one day she decides she's done, and she puts an out of office message. She never shows up to go to work, and her family is also missing her. But what happens, because she's not going to work and because she's not at home, is going to turn up into this chaos that it's going to show people how much she does, even though she's considered a very boring something-year-old, which kind of reminds me of a little bit of me in the work area. You know, you do so much behind the scenes. You're sitting on this computer doing all this, prepping all this stuff. So things come together in the future that sometimes that's kind of hard to grasp for other people that are working with you. So I thought, this sounds fun. I'm just going to give it a go. Hopefully I'll enjoy it, and the writing is good. I'll report back on that. And finally, for my 11th book in this list, I know I've been super chatty. Hopefully you're still with me. But this is the book That Night by Gillian McAllister. And it already has 989 reviews. 3.78 is the rating. And, it has 14,000 ratings and 989 reviews. So it seems like it's pretty up there. And it's going to be released on August 18th here in the US. Now, this is a story of Franny, who one night calls her sister, and her name is Kathy, and her husband, Joe, and she tells them that she killed a man and that they need to go help her. Do something, deal with it. So the couple ends up going, helping the little sister, or I'm assuming it's the little sister, Franny, and they bury the body. And then they go back home. But then they had to lie their way out of another situation. That's what I gathered is 464 pages, which is kind of ridiculous to me. I didn't see that when I requested this, but I am going to give it an honest shot to this author because I know a lot of people love her work, and for whatever reason, I've never been 100% interested. I do have one of her books in my personal TBR, physical TBR, but we'll see about this one. I feel like it's not giving you enough in the synopsis, which means that it's going to have a lot in the book that really cannot be, that it could be spoiled if you add it into the synopsis. So those are the 11 books that I have in my Finish 26 and 2026. As I'm adding more to my Kindle and I receive more arcs as I get approved, then I will add to my spread and I'll come back to you and tell you about those books. But those are my 26 or my 11 in 26. And stay tuned for part 2. If you have your list already done, could you share it in the comments down below? I'd love to know what's really out there, or what you've been giving a second chance, or or something that you're interested in reading because you've seen so much buzz on social media. So if you see something, let me know. That way I can check it out as well and kind of see if maybe we need it here at the library. So thanks again for being here, guys. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.